Dean's School of Management, Professor Vijay Kesi, and our respected Dean, School of Engineering, Dr. Dabbar Bahadur Nepali. They will be joining us soon. And respected faculties of both School of Engineering, School of Science, and at least I can see the School of Management. Dear students from both the schools, and I can also see some participants from outside. So it's really an honor for us to organize this event as green energy, as a hydrogen energy. Of course, in 25, almost more than 25 years of history, this is first ever joint seminar in the form of webinar organized by School of Engineering and School of Management. So we're really delighted, like both the deans are here to with us to encourage us and then to take this issue forward. Of course, we used to have several informal meetings, informal activities, but this is the sort of formal event we have been organizing together. Before I will tell about this event, especially we wanted to, some of the initiative which we started at the School of Engineering, we wanted to share it with faculties and students of School of Management, so that our activity will be really strong and then really be meaningful. Before I go on that, like at least we should look back why KU was established, what contributions that School of Management has done so far in this more than 25 years, what School of Engineering is doing. Of course, KU was established to complement the educational activities of the government of Nepal, and accepting that need, the School of Management from its very establishment has contributed significantly to the privatization movement of this country, which was a government strategy at that time. And like most of our graduates, they have been contributing through the private sectors, and especially the financial sectors and banking sectors. So I don't have that much of idea how much we are contributing, how much like our graduates are working in production and manufacturing sector of this country. So this is an event we thought, like now we are thinking of the new commodity as a hydrogen and then making it as a green, and then how can we work together. Similarly, the School of Engineering, like we were established to utilize the natural resources of this country and then uplifting the economy. We're so fortunate, like when we started mechanical engineering, the nation was also changing, like we were privatization, we were more liberal. So automobile sector was a little bit changing, like we had more of the new type of automobile coming up, and then initially that our mechanical engineers could work on that sector. So in the electrical engineering, as when hydropower was booming, hydropower was taking up, so more of the electrical engineers were also got involved on those activities. Similarly, when we had some opportunity, we just took chance, or like we took those opportunities. These days that we are talking much about our border issues and our maps and so around 2007, without any speciality or without any expertise, we accepted to run the program on geomatics engineering, and we had in mind that like we should have a competence of mapping, we should have a competence on geomatics, so that the graduates we produce will help to utilize our resources as well as to protect, to guard us on this sort of international conflicts. So similarly, we have several new initiatives, like whether it's a chemical engineering, whether it's civil engineering, and so. So as a university now, like at this moment also, we can think of what next. like always, like we're so glad here. Like we have two towering personality, Dr. Damar Bahadur Nepali and Professor BJ Casey. Like both of them have contributed, one on establishing hydro as a very priority area in Nepal. Like and then of course Professor BJ Casey has been contributing on the financial sector and then this economic sector of this country. So hydro has, we have been contributing hydro as a white gold, but this gold can be processed or utilized only if we have a sweat of the people on this. Otherwise, water was there earlier, water was flowing, is flowing, and water will flow without any meaning on that. So if we will add a sweat of the people on the water, then we can make it as a white gold. Otherwise, even if the sweat, sometimes it's for some people it might smell bad, but the perfume which we bring from outside will there be only for the limited period of time. That will just evaporate. We really want to add our sweat on our water and then make the water as a white gold. So for that, like it's engineers, it's a scientists, it's a managers who has to contribute. Otherwise, we'll just be dreaming on that. So there is really a challenge for all engineering community or social scientists or managers to make these dreams happen. So I'll go back again that why this School of Engineering and especially the group on a turbine testing lab has been initiating this hydro as a green energy is. So like when School of Engineering was established, and back from 1997, we started thinking of the establishing a turbine testing lab to operate and to maintain the hydropower projects efficiently so that it will be a sustainable. So we had a typical type of problem. Our nation faced a typical type of problem which Europe or West didn't had. So we had a challenge to manage the project. So we initiated a turbine testing lab with the aim that, so initially we will maintain it, we'll run it sustainably, but we also had the dream that we will design a turbine and we'll manufacture the turbine in this country so that we will add a value. Like, and we'll also utilize the human resource of this country. It's not just somebody coming here and then developing a hydropower project and they will leave. Of course, now like our private sector, the people of Nepal, now we can design the hydropower projects, we can install it, we can operate it, but still there are several sectors of the hydropower where we Nepali that we have not been involved so much, especially the hydromechanical or electromechanical components. So when we were running our activities on the turbine testing lab, like we have got good partnerships, international partnership. So one partner is like a Korea, like the Korea is a very booming economy in not only in the Asia but in the world. So when we were interacting with the colleagues working on the turbine sector, they were also sometimes talking about the automobile sector, how the technology is transforming in Korea. And similarly, our long-term partner, like a long-standing partner, Norway, they are very rich on hydropower. They are utilizing a hydropower very much, but at the same time, like for the hydropower, they are developing aluminium processing industry to utilizing the electricity. They have got the fertilizer industry. They have chemical industries. They process a silicon and sell it at a very high cost. They have a dam, and then within that, in that dam, they produce fish and they sell the fish, or they even hatch the fish and then they live in the rivers and then the sea. So the hydropower as a commodity or like as an issue, they have been spinning around and developing so many things around. Now, like at this point, why we have started talking about this is like especially when we are in a lockdown period and COVID-19 is there are several webinars. And then the leaders of the Nepal Electricity Authority, leaders of the government. Now we are talking about the spillover of the electricity we generate. So we are not being able to sell or consume all the electricity which we have produced. So, and even the leader of the Nepal Electricity Authority, Mr. Ghising, started talking about now we should generate new load or we should develop new loads for the electricity. Introducing our induction cooker in our kitchen will not add a value or will not enhance the economy of the country, economy or spin the economy. That's why we thought like what could be the industrial consumptions of the electricity. Of course, we have several cement industries, or let's say that's only the mine industries we have. Of course, that might consume some. We don't that much have a beverage or food processing industries. So, and government is much talking about agriculture sector, but we don't know how much energy that can consume. So on that note, like we thought, okay, let's start talking about the hydrogen, which is not something, not that the new thing which we have been talking about. That technology was already there, that the issue was already there. But in case of Nepal, now we said, okay, let's initiate this discussion. Like back in 90s and in the beginning of the century. So our leaders, they started talking about hydropower. Now we are developing a hydropower. Now, whether we sell our electricity that in a 5 or 10 rupees per unit, or use that 1 unit of electricity and then make that of a value of 100 rupees. So that's within us now, as we young engineers or we young managers. Let's start thinking of the hydropower with the several agenda. Okay, several agenda means, of course, normally like these days we are quite talking about the environment. So all those carbon emissions or the carbon dioxide emissions which we have, is there any way that we can contribute to reduce that? Of course, we have by developing a hydropower, it's there. But of course, if we use electricity for other purpose and still we can contribute for the environmental protection, that will be good. So my two other colleagues, Dr. Biraj and Mr. Dipesh Karki, will be talking much on that. I will not talk on those issues. So the agendas are, okay, the safety of this nature, and of course, when we talk about the hydrogen, sometimes many people ask us on the safety of the people or safety of the institutions who are using it, especially the hydrogen explosions. Why hydrogen now? How do we produce hydrogen? What sort of projects like evaluation and project management will be there? What are the opportunities for the future managers? These are the issues which we will talk, and we will try to motivate the young people who are coming for another 20 or 25, 30 years in the professional life. So that is our aim for this webinar today. So like if as a input, like with the natural resource which we have, whether as a in the form of renewable energy or a hydropower, and unfortunately we don't have a natural gas or other fossil fuels, but still we are talking about the biogas or methanes which we produce. So from these sources and with the water which is available in the country, if we produce our hydrogen, and if that hydrogen can be used for any end uses like either mobility or the mining industry, and especially the steel industry which we are talking at the moment, like a government has a plan to establish or it could be just to produce ammonia or chemical fertilizers, which might also contribute to this the government's strategy of the enhancing the agriculture and also the food security. So just to end my this opening remarks, like of course somebody has to dream. KU was a dream someday. We have realized that turbine testing lab was a dream someday. We have that. Maybe our honorable dean will tell later on. The Chilime was a dream someday, but with that Chilime, we have several private hydropower sector. So I leave this floor like with the dream which our prime minister had. Our prime minister has a dream to have our own ship and running in the sea, but I dream that ship should run with our own water. It may be just a wild dream, but if we produce hydrogen from our own water, from our own electricity, and if we run that ship, and that if that flag will be traveling all around the world, so then in the true sense, as an engineer, as a little bit educated person, I will say that we have contributed something. So for this webinar today, like when engineering, science, and then management students and management faculties are together. So I have five macro factor which will enable production of a green hydrogen as well as the utilization of this green hydropower as the general knowledge of this hydrogen technology, which we have very limited. None of us are expert on that. We are starting to know about this. We do have to have developed or utilize or adopt a lot of technology which is already developed or is on the process of development all around the world. The third part is if we really want to go or we decide to go, we will have a lot of infrastructure development activities. So whether it's a fertilizer plant or hydrogen processing, with this, the production facilities and so on. But all this cannot be a successful when we have very good successful commercial model. How do we create a demand? How do we price it? How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it economical? But sometimes, like when we will have a very appropriate investment strategy, investment modality that we make, maybe with the economic models, with the policy models which we have at the moment, may not fulfill our requirements. But this is, we as an academic community, we have a freedom to speak, we have a freedom to act, we have the freedom to work. How do we make it feasible? How do we make it safe? How do we make it economical? How do we make it sustainable? This is our challenge, and that's why we thought like we will bring this into the minds of our young students. For you, you have another 20, 30, 40 years active life, and I'm pretty sure when I was starting my engineering education, the solar photovoltaic was not economic at all, not feasible at all. So my son Rishabh was mentioning this morning that like in 1986, for the first time, the solar panel was installed in White House, but that was in 1986. That was a year before I joined my engineering. But this is the year Nepal Electricity Authority has commissioned first 1.5 megawatt solar plant. So that means for your lifetime, there is a opportunity. Please think on this technology, discuss about this technology, and contribute whatever you can to utilize the water for this available in this country for the production of electricity, and with that electricity production of the hydrogen, and hydrogen to again contribute to the agriculture and industrial sector. With this, once again, I would like to thank all the participants and then try to motivate you all to think on this technology as a opportunity for all economic, social, political, economical society sectors of this country. So I thank you very much. And so with this, I would again that at the beginning, like I had addressed both the deans, but I would like to welcome both of you, and then we would like to have your support, your guidance, your blessing to take this initiative through KU for Nepal further. Thank you very much. And then now I think I was asked in the beginning, so we will make it very informal, and then it will flow by itself. So I will request Professor BJ Casey to take over this floor, and then at least to have your opening remarks, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bolaji, for inviting me. When I got your email, I was really excited. But okay, now you know I am a management student, so I don't have much knowledge about these technical things. But yes, through these technical things, we can develop our country. Apparently, when you talk about the country's development, there are different models, but one model is to capitalize on its strength, and it is well known to everyone that what our state is the hydropower. Okay, but unfortunately we have not been able to utilize it properly. But now I think these days lots of efforts are being done in this regard, and we are trying to exploit our hydropower. And then I remember one program that was in 2001, and that program was organized by Staff College, and there we had discussed about the hydropower. and supply. Then at that time we had an expert from India. Then he was the hydroelectricity expert, and he pointed out that by 2007 and 8, Nepal will have lots of power supply. It's a surplus, you see now. Then the problem is how to consume those things. That was what he pointed out. That was long back in 2001, 2002. But unfortunately, it could materialize, and then it's only now we see that possibility, and we think definitely, okay, now we'll have surplus hydropower, and then we have to think how we can use it. Now, in fact, you see, when a country has lots of energy, then having that energy and utilizing that energy itself helps the country to grow, to develop. And then I think for us, you see, this is very much important. And in management, what you say is, okay, now when you have product and services, simply having product and services is not enough. We have to take that to the end users. I remember one businessman telling me that, you see now, look, if we only produce and produce, then we'll go bankrupt. Unless until we take it to the proper consumer, you see. Simply production is not enough. Now here, okay, now we'll have this project is very useful, because this, I think this shows that how we can use the hydroelectricity power in different alternative uses. So this is really very encouraging. And of course, the challenge for us is to how can we take this to the ultimate consumers, to end users, you see now. So here you see now, what is important for us is to manage the supply chain. I think the PhD will be talking about the supply chain of this thing. And when we talk about supply chain, then we need to have proper supply chain process. Then only we can take the product rightly to the right and finance in a way which is financially viable. And then the cost is there. We have to look at the cost part also. There, of course, another thing that we see that during that supply chain management, we also need to look at the quality, and all the things are there. So definitely, you see now. Now there in this part, you see now, I think we as management, the management school can help. So producing this properly and coming out with these technical services, of course, the Department of Engineering, School of Engineering will do that. Then yes, how can we do that in a more efficient way and effective way, and how we can take this to the end consumers? That's very much important. And definitely, if we have surplus power, and then okay, now alternative uses like this, then I think this will alone contribute a lot for the growth of the country, and then of course increasing the per capita income of our Nepalese people. So when I learned about this thing, I'm really very much encouraged and very much motivated, and feel that this is something which we have to do it. Always, you see now, when we look at the competitive advantage of a nation, we always focus on exploiting the strength of the country. And then definitely we feel that this is one of our areas of strength, and we can utilize this properly. And then it's good that, okay, the School of Management is also a part of this whole project, and we are very much willing to contribute as far as we can. Then we have the faculty who are expert in marketing, finance, all those things. We will be glad to contribute in this, and we like to see that this project comes successfully. So thank you very much for making Kashmir University as a part of this this project, and we are willing and more than happy to support in any way we can do. Thank you very much, Balaji. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Namaste to everybody. My name is Viraj Singh Thapa. So next presenter on the series. It's glad we are here today. I can see almost 100 participants. It's a very good number for us. So on the chat box, there is a small registration form. Please, we would like you to fill it up, all the participants and all the presenters, for our record, and any suggestions, any feedback. There are two parts. One is for the registration part and another is for the feedback part. So we'd like to conduct these discussions on series so that we really have an outcome out of the discussions. So kindly go to the chat box and the link there, and we can communicate further. So let me start my presentation today. So the topic of my presentation. So what we are discussing, why do we need it, and how do we get it in Nepal? So that's main part of the discussion. So I would like to start because we are talking about green. So we want to see why we need green, because if you look the global ambient level of particles 2.5 in 2018, we can see almost the whole Asia. It is red. That means it's higher than WHO standards, and that brings a lot of concern. That brings a lot of health and other issues. If you see the rest of the world, particularly in Europe, it's green. It's completely green. That's like below 10. So that's what we want to dream. We want to have a fresh air, clean air. If not for us, the generation behind us, they should have everywhere green. That's why we see hydrogen as a future energy sources, where we can see the entire globe green in this picture. If you say, we have a dream. That's a dream of my generation, to have everything in this picture green. That's why we call green hydrogen can be one of the sources. And why we are having like that, this is the background. Because today's discussion, the main aim for us is to have a motivations. We need to understand some background, if not the technical one, at least the social part of it. So if you look in the picture, the GDP per person, we have in Asia, Singapore, Bahrain, Australia, they have quite a high GDP compared to South Asian countries, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Pakistan. So we are neighbors, good neighbors, and so many things are common. We have very less GDP, and we have very high particulate emissions. So that is a really big challenge for our part of the world, and producing bad energy. So we produce quite a high emissions compared to the bigger countries or developed countries, and that is the reason we need to change the way we use energy, so that our GDP can rise and our emission can fall down. And this has brought quite a hazard in Asia. If you look, the reason behind the deaths or mortalities, the ambient particulate matter and household air pollution is quite high. So it reflects on our mortality. It reflects on our health system. And it also reflects on our climate. If you see the trends of global warming, from the studies done, we may expect almost 6 degrees rise in temperature in Himalayan region. So if 6 degree temperature are rising in Himalayan, we will have not a single drop of snow on our caps, and that will stop all our rivers flowing, and that will stop all our ecosystem. Of course, it will not happen. There has been a lot of movements. There has been a lot of political science and other initiatives that will not let this happen. But still, if nothing is done, 6 degrees rise in temperature just because of the greenhouse gases and other effects that human beings are producing, and particularly by the use of fossil fuels. But we have some scenarios. This is a very short-term studies done by NASA. If you look from March to April into 2019, exactly same period, and this is the emission levels, the molecular matters above Indian subcontinent. And if you look, just because of the COVID, none of the vehicles were out. We can see within the same period, within the 1 month time, it has significantly declined. Of course, we see some pockets because we have a coal-fired electricity generating plants in this area. So that is even producing electricity. But if you see the Delhi, if you see Dhaka, if you see Lahore, everything is close towards blue or green. So that means if you can control the greenhouse gas emissions, if you can control particulate emissions, control things, then that will certainly improve the environment. And the COVID has given a very strong background. It has given a very strong correlation between things. So then on that background, so many clean air measures in Asia have been proposed, and this has been released from UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, for us. And if you see, these are the recommendations to clean our air, to control our environment. And there are so many things. Clean cooking, of course, Nepal is working on that. Industrial processes. Most of the emissions are from the post-combustion controls. For example, the brick chimneys and other combustion things. And particularly if you see the emission standards for road vehicles, that means if we control the emissions coming from the road vehicles, that will have a very, very high impact. And that is possible. In Nepal, as of now, we can count the number of electric vehicles, that is 5 or 10, less than 50 on the roads. So if we change these patterns, the way we use the road vehicles and produce emissions, that could have a very big impact on the environment, and of course reflects on climate change and other things. And studies have shown, if we follow those clean environmental impacts, if you see under the current scenario, the policies that the countries are following in this region, this will be the emission patterns on 2030. But if the clean environment measures are legislated, if you see the difference, that's quite high. The study shows 80% of emissions can be controlled, and most of them are from the electricity that is produced from coal firing plants and emissions from the road vehicles. So that has given us a kind of motivations that we need to change the ways we use energy. We need to change the way we use the fossil fuels. And this has a very big impact on environment. If you see the current trends of the emissions, we are expecting to have 3.5 degrees rise in temperature by 2100, the global rise in temperature. But if you control the emission patterns, if you control the greenhouse gas, for example, if you choose this path to 2 degrees Celsius, then by 2080s we need to have net zero emissions. Then the overall temperature rise can be kept under 2 degrees Celsius. There are also the pathways to keep the global warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And all these patterns of the climate change or control over the climate change has been related with the energy patterns that we use. So many studies has been done. It is needed. It is necessary. It forecasts if COVID does not impact, it's not, then the GDP is expected to rise quite sharp. And that means the purchasing capacity of each human being will increase. That means the amount of money we can use for purchasing energy could be higher than what we use right now. And that additional money for purchasing high quality energy for protecting environment is possible because GDP is rising up. If you can buy high value clothes, we can buy high value fuels as well. And there has been studies to see how this can be achieved. If we want to control temperatures below 2 degrees Celsius by 2100 degrees Celsius, this would be the energy mix. It's clear. Now we have less than 6% of the total energy is renewables, but that has to change. It should be almost low carbon, and renewables should contribute over 80% of total global energy by 2100. If that is the direction, if that is the way, that is the path that entire world is following, Nepal and the neighboring countries around it cannot remain behind. We have to follow this. We have to do this, and somewhere we need to start. And that's why we call green hydrogen can take up a big share on these renewables. So let me enter in the second part. Where do we find green hydrogen and contributing towards the low carbon society? Hydrogen is an energy carrier. In fact, it is This process was found by Williams Groove in 1838. It's quite an old technology. It's not a rocket science at all. It's a very, very old and forgotten technology. What we do is we just break water into a hydrogen and oxygen ions by applying electricity. So that's half part of the reaction, what we call as the electrolysis. And we carry the hydrogen and put it back into the fuel cell, where it mixes with oxygen and produces back water. So it's just like breaking water into hydrogen and producing water by combining with oxygen. So breaking water needs electricity, and producing water will produce electricity. So hydrogen is basically storing the electrical energy in quite a very dense form. So this is just a chemical reaction. So it's all behind the chemical reaction. But the challenges are, how do we produce it in the efficient way? How do we store it in the efficient way? That has been our recent challenge, but it's an old technology. As of now, it's of course solar energy that produces hydrogen. It can be directly produced from heat by thermolysis, hydrogen, and mostly from the mechanical energy by heat, or by directly fluid energy by hydraulic machines. We produce electricity, and electricity can be produced from solar panels, and we do electrolysis. We can produce hydrogen. Hydrogen can be produced from biomass, and then by pyrolysis and other methods, and hydrogen can be produced. It can be also produced from photosynthesis, and there are several pathways. I think for Nepal, the hydrogen production through electricity, maybe from solar or from hydropower, can be a sustainable path. There are a lot of technical aspects, though it has been developed a long time ago. So this is a kind of a block diagram. I don't want to bring you in the technical aspects. So there are so many steps. We need to produce electricity first. Then we need to break water into hydrogen and oxygen. We need to store it. We need to transfer it. We need to put it back again into the fuel cells and then produce electricity again. So that's a very complicated processes, which has overall efficiency issues. The total average efficiency for a whole cycle is not more than 60%. There are so many research that has been conducting, and the aim is to cross 80% efficiency. But the argument is, if fossil fuel can run with 30% efficiency, why not hydrogen can run with 60% efficiency? Storage is another problem. We need 300 bars. That's extremely high pressure. 300 bars, it's not a common pressure. So that's a challenge, how to store in that high pressure. It's very light, it leaks, it is inflammable. We have safety issues. It has a lot of cost parameters around it, and the technology is it's not completely mature. So it's under process, and the main problem is adaptability. Can we change our mindset from fossil fuels, what we call as even dirty, it's easy fuel, to a clean fuel, complicated and challenging fuel? And maybe that's how the maturity of the society and adaptability of this technology come hand by hand in future. That's what we can expect. But if we see the operational ranges, why we can use the hydrogen, because if you see the energy density, it's comparable to the nuclear fuels. It has very, very, very high energy density, almost 400 times a high density than normal fossil fuel, 4,000 times dense than normal battery. So that means 1 kilogram of hydrogen can give the same power from the energy stored in 400 kilograms of battery. And that's a huge thing when we compare to the vehicles, because to carry a battery is to consume more power. That's why we think in the future, small cars and small vehicles will still be battery-based electric vehicles. But for the big buses, for the intracity cars, for the trains, where the battery cannot drive it because of the low density of energy, there is a very distinct gap where hydrogen can fuel it because of this high energy density. We just need few kilograms, 10 or 20 kilograms hydrogen can drive from Kathmandu to, for example, Pokhara. That's quite high energy density. So that is the range where lots of researches has been conducted, and that is where we can also be focused in Nepal. A lot of energy is consumed by city buses, trucks, and maybe in the future trains as well. If you see the market right now in 2020, we have a very classical market for hydrogen. It's just a feedstock. That means the industry producing fertilizers, the industry producing some chemicals, something only that. So only the small scale or the industrial scale hydrogen is a demand for this, but it is changing. Lots of new industrial sector is coming up. For example, power generation. Transportation will be the largest consumer of hydrogen. Right now, it's almost zero, but now in future, transportation will have a very big sector of hydrogen. And we also have the industrial energy coming from hydrogen. We're also having the building energy coming from hydrogen. And almost the industrial scale, that is the urea production and chemical processing plant, it remains same. So a lot of new things will happen. And if we start to bring hydrogen in context of Nepal as well, all these things will start in Nepal as well. We will have a new ecosystem of transportation. We will have a new ecosystem for power generation and buffing. So that's a future. Entire world is moving towards hydrogen with the different shift of society. And this year is a very significant for hydrogen. We call it 2020, the horizon, because from this year, the energy of or the cost of hydrogen from the renewable is entering into the cost of hydrogen produced from the fossil fuels. So until now, the hydrogen, the cheapest hydrogen produced from the renewable energy is still expensive from the fossil fuels. But from 2020 and 21, it will start to come inside and slowly even fall down. By year 2040, the hydrogen produced from the renewable energy will be cheaper than the fossil fuels. And that is why we need 10 or 20 years gap. We still have some time to prepare our society, because hydropower will remain for next 200 years, for example. So if hydrogen becomes comparable and cheaper than fossil fuels, definitely this will change the transportation sector. Definitely this will change the industrial sector. Then we need to start to prepare from now in order to adopt this energy in future. That's why we call this is the right time to discuss. This is the right time to start. So if you look the development of hydropower, Nepal, like it has the story has changed within the last 5 years, where we used to have 18 years of load shedding. Now we have surplus energy, and moreover that 24,000 megawatts are under some stages of development, and almost 7,000 megawatts are on the pipeline. We expect these projects to be completed by 2030, if late 2035. So if National Grid has more than 7,000 megawatts in 2030, we will have lots of energy surplus. So many discussions how to handle the surplus energy, but good that we have the surplus energy. That is the motivation. And the recent data from Investment Board shows that by the year 2030, the maximum power demand, including all the new energy sources, converting all the household into electric cooking system, converting 30% of vehicles into electric vehicles, all the government measures to create demand will saturate only 10,000 megawatts. But the power production, if we go in the high-speed mode, it will be 18 gigawatt. So we can clearly see the projections. These are the studies. It shows we will be having 8 gigawatts of surplus energy by the year 2030 than what we need. And that's what we want to utilize. And that will be too late if you start thinking to utilize this energy in 2028, for example. We need to start to think from now how to do that. And of course, the best example given is to export. There are so many things. MCC is in the parliament, and there are so many good numbers. It says we can have 3 billion USD per year in 2030 if we are able to sell all the surplus electricity to India, for example. But there are so many issues. What happens if transmission lines are not there? What happens if you don't have a quality and reliability in power? What happens when the transmission lines get failed? What happens if the political issues rise up? What happens when the money to do the land acquisitions is not available? So many uncertainties, but still hope is there that Nepal can export electricity, surplus power, and produce revenues. A good one way of thinking, but there are other ways to do that. And what happens when we start to export the electricity to India? There is another study what says right now we have, this is the petroleum products is quite low, but once we start to generate revenues by selling electricity from 2030, $3 billion US per year, there is a boom. Look at the rise in the petroleum products, and that is not sustainable development. We sell electricity and we buy fossil fuels, and it is exponential growth. Why? Because we will be importing lots of vehicles, lots of cars, lots of roads that goes to wide corners of Nepal, and we need more fossil fuels to drive those cars and vehicles. More import from India, and we have trucks that drives the imported items from Calcutta port to Kathmandu and rest of the world. So that means becoming rich in future, Nepal will have even high dependency on fossil fuels. And if you see where the transport, if you look at the transport sector, it's diesel. So we will be having high diesel consumption in future, and also coal. And if you look at the energy consumption pattern for 2030, we will be having 7% diesel, and when we become rich, we will be having 18% diesel. Of course, we will be having the electricity will be changing from 3% to 32% because cooking stoves and electric vehicles will be there. But that is quite disappointing for us to have like almost 3 times growth of diesel from 7% to 18% from poor Nepal to rich Nepal. So we find diesel is a commodity where it cannot be replaced. We can replace petrols by electric vehicles, battery based, but diesels are kind of the bad carbons footprinted in Nepal. And if you don't do anything right now, this will not let us be in the sustainable development, because we need to depend on other countries for 18% of total energy we consume coming from diesel alone. And if you look to the current scenario, this is the most productive power in Nepal, Khimti hydropower plant. And it was so surprising. This gives us 10 gigawatt of electricity to NEA every year. It's a rich power plant. It can give up because it produces more than what it has to be done in PPA. But look at the small power plant. Thank you. So if you look to the other side, the small projects, the 5 megawatt and 10 megawatt projects, they are not able to lift power to the grid because they cannot synchronize, because the electricity is 11 kVA volt is not supporting their systems. Then they are called as the sick projects. So if all the small 1 megawatt to 5 megawatt projects are classified as a sick project, and they are not giving the revenues, their share is getting down to 50, and the big project has to give 10 gigawatts electricity free to NEA, then that's not a very good story for the hydropower investors. And there is one issue. If we start to produce hydrogen from the excess energy, if we start to produce hydrogen from the sick projects, I think that will be a sustainable method, and that is what we call the future directions. It was from yesterday's news in Setapati. I'm thankful to Professor Gola who shared this to me. Already it's happening. People are quite innovative in Nepal. We have a very good business mind. So the biogas produced from the municipal wastes and other wastes are being converted into gases and bottled in the cylinder like this, and it's a commercial value. If the entrepreneur, if the entrepreneur in Nepal can establish a commercial biogas center where they are competing with the LPG. Now this can be alternative to LPG fuels. Maybe in future, the same companies can divert their businesses and produce hydrogen from hydropower, surplus energy. Even Khimti is giving 10 gigawatt free to NEA. Small power projects cannot grid connected, and their electricity is almost free for now. So if we can use those electricity and produce hydrogen, bottle them like this, sell it in the market, maybe the fossil fuel trucks can be converted into fuel cell trucks in future. We know that even Tata Motors have started to investigate on hydrogen trucks. I don't want it in future. The Tata trucks coming to Nepal from India, and hydrogen pipeline for the fuel to the fuel cells. So before that happens, we need to at least try to create our own fuel that can replace fossil fuel in the future. And examples are there. And there are, of course, the end use are challenging. We can use this in transport, maybe very less for manufacturing, but this will have a very good impact on the electricity system. This can be a buffer when there is a spill energy surplus production, and NEA is expecting 400 megawatt surplus energy in monsoon period next year. 400 megawatts extra electricity for 3 months, and that could be used for hydrogen production in future. It can be used for hospitals, schools, hotels, which needs dedicated electricity, continuous electricity supply. We can replace fossil fuel based electricity generator from hydrogen based, fuel cell based generator for hospitals, for schools, for hotels, and that has a big impact. Industrial processings. Nepali government had 11 Arabs that as an incentive just for urea fertilizer coming from India. And if you can produce urea in Nepal in future as an industrial process, it will consume big amount of electricity, and it will also be the all consumer for hydrogen, because urea needs hydrogen. Urea is a hydrogen intensive industry. Maybe in future we can dream of exporting hydrogen to nearby country, to Bangladesh, for example. Bangladesh is an electric hunger country. The project in Karnali, for example, and transmission line up to Bangladesh can be replaced by a dedicated hydrogen production unit in Karnali itself, bottling it in a safe vessel, transporting it by water, like Bola sir said earlier. Nepalese ship driven by hydrogen, carrying hydrogen to Bangladesh, and hydrogen can produce electricity back in Bangladesh for their industries. So we don't need transmission lines. In one of the news, I saw our Prime Minister saying in Nepali, "Bijuli lai dokoma lai jane ho, MCC चाहिन्छ." Okay, we need MCC. We don't say we don't need MCC, but yes, dokoma bijuli ल्याउन सकिन्छ, and that doko is safety vessels and electricity is hydrogen. So we have alternatives to transmission lines, that is carrying electricity through hydrogen. So concluding this is, as I said, this is just the technical part. We think there should be a roadmap. We should start from the feasibility study. We should have an assessment of technical, financial, environment, and market. And market is more important for us. That's why School of Management is our partner today to find out what can be done. The presentation after me can be on that issues. So hydropower and other renewable. So we need to start from somewhere: feasibility study, cost benefit analysis, social impacts, environmental impacts, all. We need to have a capacity development. I think at present, me, Bola sir, and few of us know what we are talking about. We are trying to motivate others, reach far and wide, try to push people to make them understand what they can. But that will not help. We need capacity. We need research facilities. We need expertise in the local universities, so we can do the research and development, and we can also contribute to the knowledge management. Of course, we are not ready to do the fundamental research, but technology transfer and local adaptation, that is our path. And to support that path, there should be the capacity in the university coming to the society. Then we think we need a pilot project, small or big, it doesn't matter, but that will complete all the steps from production to bottling to safety to transfer to retailing. all those smaller things and create complete business ecosystem, because this is a new commodity. It's a completely new thing. We don't have a value chain from production, storage, supply, retails, end use, and we need to push towards the national policy. We may need direct foreign investments to establish the big power plants, fertilizer industries. So it has a big impact. What we are talking is not on the small perspective. It has a bigger and long-term impact to the country. So this is how we think we should proceed forward. And I would like to end with some reflections. We think this COVID has changed our psychology in a way. So today we are having the webinar. We have not done it earlier, but we think we have changed. It looks quite common to us. So this is, and we think this COVID phenomenon, pandemic, has given us a clear mandate to take off the footprints, the carbon footprint from the energy we use at present. If we don't use energy from we don't eliminate the carbon footprints, COVID and the pandemic like COVID will keep on coming in several names, several forms, but it will keep on coming. So we need to remove the carbon footprints. The rest of the world is coming towards the hydrogen. If you look to the newspaper, I suggest you can search. Germany is investing $300 billion on hydrogen. Japan already has one model hydrogen society where only and only hydrogen is used for each and everything they use, from cooking to heating to transport. Everything is supplied from the hydrogen, and that they call hydrogen society. Australia, it aims to be the world's largest exporter of hydrogen in the world in future, because they have big deserts and they have a good solar radiations. And Europe is coming up as a new market for hydrogen. Even Norway has started to use hydrogen trucks to carry the goods in their thing. So world is moving towards hydrogen. But for us, we cannot remain behind. We cannot stick to fossil fuel. We cannot stick to the dirty fuel that is giving us less GDP and producing more emissions. The technology is maturing. It has matured to some point. For our part, the technology transfer and local adaptation is a start. Of course, in future, we want to contribute to the fundamental research. And now we need the most challenge is not the technology, because it is kind of mature, but to establish the supply chain for the locally generated hydrogen and to generate revenue. Like Dean School of Management said, if you keep on producing and producing, you'll be bankrupt. You need to generate revenue, but how? So that is where I want to stop. So that is where I think School of Management can contribute. And that is where this discussion can lead towards. Each of us feel this is a interest for the nation. And if we start to talk about it, discuss about it, and bring good ideas around it, I think this is possible. And that is how we get to there. So thank you very much. So I would like to stop here and then hand on to my next friend. I still request everybody to fill up the registration and feedback form and participate in the discussion sessions where we have time and expectations to discuss on a good topic. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Biraj sir, for your very incisive presentation on the technical aspects related with hydrogen, green hydrogen, and its potential in Nepal. So now I'm going to make a presentation from the Kathmandu University School of Management side, where though my topic is entitled the supply chain of the hydrogen, but since it is a very incipient product, there hasn't been much progress that has been made so far. So I'll be discussing it from the policy as well as the future perspective. So let me first present my screen. So is the screen visible?
Yes, it is coming. Yes, you can just make it a full screen and then that's fine.
Okay, so I think Biraj sir has already covered a lot about the potential of the hydrogen power and how we can proceed in the future. We have to understand that this is a very old technology, but now the innovation has been added. So I always talk about innovation. What is innovation? When people ask me, innovation is not something that comes overnight. It is like two completely different things. When they connect, then the innovation happens. For example, the wheel was invented like 2,000 years ago, and the suitcases, people were carrying suitcases for almost 2,000 years. But it was still 1975 when some person thought that they can attach wheel and a suitcase, when the innovation actually happens. So actually we are at the crossroad of that. So let me explain a bit about from the perspective of the climate change. I think Virat sir has already explained a lot. So climate change is, of course, an existential risk, just like the coronavirus that we are right now witnessing. And we all know that a country like Nepal is the most vulnerable of it. And according to the scientists, the fossil fuel, that is the fuel that is carbon-based fuel, the non-renewable energy, is considered as the major driver of the anthropogenic climate change, that is the human-induced climate change. Because we have to understand that the climate always changes. Climate has always changed, but how much impact does our human interaction with the environment actually causes the climate change? That is the biggest piece of concern. Now, the International Panel for Climate Change has, aimed to keep the global temperature, below 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial level by the year 2050. That has been the target. And since 2015, lots of work has been being done. Therefore, the sustainable and alternative source of energy is always the need of the time. And I do not think that this remark needs to be overstated. So we are in the verge of a crisis, fuel crisis, climate crisis, you name it. But I would like to share a kind of cliche, which according to a Chinese symbol for risk, because we are in a kind of risk, the first character always signifies danger, while the second character always signifies the opportunity. So we are over here at this crossroad, where we are in between the danger as well as in the opportunity. So if you look at the current context of Nepal, it is kind of very depressing, because we are too dependent on the fossil fuel. Just last year, according to the International Trade Center's trade map, we imported almost 216 billion rupees worth of petroleum products from India. Now, one of the major problems that we have with India in terms of trade is that our Nepalese currency is not directly convertible to the Indian currency. For example, if you carry your Nepalese rupees and you go to in the cities of India, say Delhi or Mumbai or Calcutta, and you try to buy something using it, you cannot directly convert it into the Indian currency. So what we need to do is we have to buy Indian currency by paying the dollar reserves that we have. And the dollar reserves that has filled up our national coffers from the hard-earned money by our labor brothers and sisters working in the Gulf countries, it is dwindling, because we are consuming it in the large portion with the fossil fuel. If we simply just factor out the fossil fuel, then the balance of trade with India will improve drastically. Now, if you look at the electricity demand situation, Virat sir already mentioned this a lot in his earlier presentation. There is the per capita, even in a high scenario case, the per capita demand of our electricity is like almost around 3.3 megawatt electricity by the year 2040. So the thing is that, as Vijay sir had told earlier during this webinar session, that there is supply and there is a demand. In economics, there is always this interplay between supply and demand. But we witnessed a very shortfall in supply during the time of our load shedding years. But now we are moving towards the surplus of the electricity. But the problem with the electricity is that it cannot be stored without loss. Electricity is kind of an energy that needs to be consumed once it is produced. And though we can store it in the form of chemical batteries, they are again very inefficient. And of course, there is a pollution hazard associated with the chemical batteries as well. So therefore, then what to do with the surplus electricity that we're generating, the surplus electricity that our projected hydropower plants will generate in future. So one of the best way to deal with it is sell it to, as Viraj sir already told earlier, that sell it to India, Bangladesh, neighboring countries, the electricity. But the problem is again with the transmission lines. We do not have a transmission lines. Electricity is something that cannot be easily packaged. It cannot be sold across the border. And the other thing is that we Nepalese we have a very weak bargaining power. For example, the GMR, the Grandi Malika Arjuna Rao GMR Upper Karnali project. We did a PPA with Bangladesh Power Development Board to purchase 500 megawatts of electricity, and that was like 7.71 cents per unit for 25 years. Now the average price of the electricity is 14 cents per unit for household users, and $12 per unit in a business user. This is an average global price. Okay, so by just looking at this, we can say that somehow we are getting a very bad end of the bargain, poor end of the bargain, because it could have been sold in 14 cents in the global market, but we are selling it like 7.71 cents, and still there are issues of the transmission lines and all those kind of things. So now there can be other whimsical ideas. For example, like with surplus electricity, we can do something like mining the Bitcoin. We can harvest the Bitcoin and Ethereum cryptos, and instead of selling at 7 cents, we can if our system hit the jackpot and generate a Bitcoin, then it will be like $18,000 US. So something that can be also done. And of course, there is always in the future there can be something like superconductors, which is still not feasible in a room temperature. And if superconductors were there, then we could have stored the electricity without any loss. But these are again the very, very whimsical ideas. So then how do we move the green hydrogen from the hydropower? Viraj sir has already mentioned this at in length, that in an electrolysis process that which we all have studied in our schools, we can generate surplus electricity. And from surplus electricity, you can apply the electrolysis and we can generate both the hydrogen and the oxygen. Now the hydrogen can be used for hydrogen-based fuels, the hydrogen-based fuel cells that Viraj sir has told earlier in his presentation. But we have to again remember that electrolysis process not only generates hydrogen, it also generates oxygen. And the oxygen can be supplied to the hospital. So then there are two products basically that can be marketed. And then hydrogen can be used for chemical productions, like using the Born-Haber cycle process, ammonia, which is one of the most important drivers for fertilizers, and which we always talk about the agricultural revolution. And without fertilizers, it is not possible. And of course, though the demand has fallen, in current market, the margarines, which can be generated through the hydrogenation, which can be considered as a replacement for the butter, can also be used. And we can also use the fuel for hydrogen cells. So these are some of the prospects of using the green hydrogen from the hydropower. So why the hydrogen fuel cells? For example, right now in electric vehicle, there are two types of electric vehicle coming in the market. One is using a conventional batteries that like the Tesla uses. The another one is the fuel cell electric vehicle, such as Toyota Mirai. And the problem with the electric vehicles, the current electric vehicles that are in the market, is that it takes a lot of time to charge the battery. It takes like around 2 hours to 3 hours, and you need to have lots of charging station. But hydrogen fuels can be, charged. It can be refueled in a very faster time. Some estimates have said that in 3 minutes you can fill up the entire tank. It is environmental friendly because unlike the internal combustion engine, it doesn't produce the smoke. Instead, it produces water as a byproduct. But now, what is the challenges then? We have this technology, then why are we not moving forward? That's the biggest question. So the major reason is, of course, the lack of refueling. In order to have a proper, if you are owning a hydrogen fuel car, then while traveling, you need a place where you can easily refuel it. but right now there are very few refueling centers. Even in California, there are like 400 refueling centers. So it hasn't scaled up in that much. So this is a classic chicken or egg conundrum that generally most of the new technology and new businesses suffer from. So now let me discuss a little bit about what can be done. What are the potentials? Now, whenever we talk about a new technology, and especially in a country like ours, we always talk about foreign aids. So foreign aids can be there because since we're talking about a technology that can help mitigate the climate change. So the thing is, this hydrogen-based economy, from the climate finance perspective, can be considered as a climate mitigation strategy. Climate mitigation strategy means climate finance has always these two components: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation means we try to reduce our carbon footprint, while adaptation means we try to cope with the changing environment and try to change our behavior. So basically, this hydrogen-based economy, as it tries to replace the internal combustion engine technology, climate mitigation strategy is the right approach. And now, according to the United Nations Framework for Conventions, there is a public-private financing mechanism that can be applied, that can be used for climate mitigation and climate adaptation. There is a fund available for that. So the recent research done by Buchner 2019, which shows that almost $546 billion in 2018 was spent for developing this kind of climate resilient, sustainable projects. But it's still short by 1.6 to 3.8 trillion US dollars. So why is this important? Because whenever we are discussing about a project or product that mitigates the climate change, we always talk about something called global public good. The public good, as we know, is non-excludable and non-rivalrous in nature, but global public good is something bit different. Global public good is different because it has a larger geographic coverage. For example, if you reduce carbon footprint here in Nepal, then it will have an impact the entire globe. So, and if somebody reduces the carbon footprint in US, then it will have an impact and across the globe. So it has a huge geographic coverage. And then there is something called a temporal span, because if you reduce footprint this year, then the carbon footprint reduction will transfer to the generations to come. So there is an intergenerational and cross-border aspects of the global public good. Therefore, global public good, developing a global public good is always a very good idea from the public policy point of view. But there are the challenges with the global public goods. And that challenges is something called Bergstrom paradox. This was the paradox that was introduced very recently. And according to this, what happens is that, for example, let's say some industrialized country, let's say US or Germany or England, they fund our projects. They fund our project here in Nepal. Then what they will do is they will just fund the project in Nepal, and they will stop reducing their own carbon footprint. As a result of which, the entire climate mitigation challenges goes into the soldiers of the developing country, and which is something that we do not want to do. So this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. Like, for example, if we want to create a green hydrogen fuel based, using the foreign aid from developed countries, then there is always this challenge that the entire cost of burden might fall into our soldiers. So therefore, it is very, very essential that private sectors be developing. The private sectors should be involved in producing the green hydrogen, because whenever there is a private sector's involvement, then this Pareto inoptimality means we cannot make someone better off by making someone else worse off. This something can be achieved when we involve the private sector. So the private sector's involvement in a green hydrogen is a need of time. But for the private sector, in order to bring the private investment into something like this, we need to always be clear on what kind of incentives we can provide to the private sector. So until and unless the incentives for the private sectors can be determined, no matter how good the technology is, it is not going to bear any kind of fruit. So at this point, I'd like to discuss about, that's where this innovation thing is essential. That's where this multidisciplinary approach of using School of Engineering, School of Science, School of Management, and all other schools of Kathmandu University come together and innovate. Because whenever we talk about innovations from engineering point of view, we always talk about this feasibility part. That's this technology part. But we have to, at the same time, talk about the viability. Viability always discusses about financial resources. From where are we going to bear the cost? From where we're going to spend money? As I mentioned, the viability of hydrogen-based, green hydrogen-based technology only by dependence on the foreign aid is not possible, because it suffers from something called Bergstrom paradox. That's why in viability section, we always have to bring the private sectors. But at the same time, we cannot rule out the user component. The user component is addressed by the desirability factors. If the hydrogen-based fuel is not desirable to the common users, then there is no point of selling it. And private sectors will not have any incentives to sell it. So this is where we have to work on this desirability factor and the viability factor. Now, this is very, very essential to understand that hydrogen is very highly flammable gas. It is very highly flammable gas, and it is explosive in nature. Perhaps in school, whenever you had in a lab preparation of hydrogen gas, there is something called a test called pop test, where you insert a flammable flint of a matchstick inside the glass chamber and it makes pop sound. So hydrogen is very flammable and explosive. So how do we make it safer? How do we make this delivery possible? Because we have the LPG gases in our home, liquefied petroleum gases in our home. So how can we deliver that into our home? That is where our business components should address. So now let me discuss about the potential market. So I just did a little bit of Google, and I found that in the present price of hydrogen in India, the delivery point is estimated to be somewhere around 876 kilograms per rupees. And in India, this petrol price is around 175. So the thing is that it has a very high value. Hydrogen has a very high value based on this. And Indian hydrogen market is projected to grow from $264 million in 2018 to $727 million by 2030. So in space of like 10 years, almost around 10 years, it is going to more than triple the value. Besides, hydrogen can be used in producing ammonia, synthesis, urea fertilizers, and all kinds of things. And if we can somehow package this hydrogen, then we can be a net exporter of energy, net exporter of the energy, not only electricity, but we can channel the hydrogen using cylinders and all those kind of things. Now, there's one interesting thing that I would like to mention here regarding India's Supreme Court has also, I put it in the reference as well. Supreme Court has also mandated that, it's just this November that, India should explore the potential of using hydrogen cell as a renewable source of energy. So there is a huge potential in India. India is being one of the largest market for us. So this is how the supply chain can work. We have, like right now, these hydropower dams and hydropower production centers. And from these hydropower centers, the surplus electricity that is in the transmission grid can be electrolyzed. And this can be electrolyzed and it can be converted into hydrogen and then oxygen. These oxygens can be directly, transported into hospitals, where it can have huge potentials, live oxygen stream to hospitals. No need to move it through pipelines. You use it through pipelines and send it to the hospitals. Then there is, of course, this hydrogen gas that can be carried out through the tankers, or we can use the fuel pipeline, the one like the Americans that we're using. And we can then transport this hydrogen into industries where we can use it for generating ammonia, nitrous compounds, and develop all the chemical fertilizers and all the other hydrogen uses. We can use it for FCEVs, that's car refueling centers, and we can have hydrogen-based car cars running in our country. We can send this hydrogen gas into buildings, and replace our conventional stoves, because by having a supply line, we can reduce that particular part as well. Or we can use it for foreign trade. Foreign trade also, the hydrogen has a kind of component. So from business perspective, hydrogen, there can be lots of industries, secondary industries coming up. For example, transporting the hydrogen gas can be a new industry. How to manage the fuel pipeline, that can be a new industry. How to, the transport sector of using this fuel cell electric vehicles can be a new industry. There is a huge multiplier in the already existing industries, and applying the hydrogen gases. The hospitals can benefit it. So there are lots of market potentials using these hydropowers. So now I'd like to touch upon a little bit about what the role of School of Management is trying to do in this particular thing. One of the things is, of course, the market potential of hydrogen product. Determining a market potential of something that is not there. The market is not there yet. So we cannot have any revealed preference techniques that we can apply to gauge the market potential. Here we have to resort to something called discrete choice experiments, so we can do some kind of research to determine the market potential and see the potential of where the market can be in the next 10 years. Otherwise, everything will be in speculations. The another thing about is that the project feasibility itself. Right now we generally use the net present value method, the discounting valuation methods in our conventional projects. But we can apply something called real option analysis, which is much more suitable for determining the cost benefits of and determining the financial projections of the green hydrogen projects. The other thing is that whenever there is a value, there is something, so people are willing to pay the price. So how are you going to determine how much price the consumers are willing to pay, how much price the industry is willing to pay, or how much price our foreign partners are willing to pay for the hydrogen? Because we can run something called contingent valuation methods, and we can do a research on willingness to pay as well. Besides that, there is a potential of trade potential with the neighboring countries. How do we trade it? How do we send it to through pipelines or through the cylinders? How are we going to do that? That's the part where we can do a research. The other thing about hydrogen is that in other countries, whenever they are generating hydrogen, there is a problem is that hydrogen electrolysis requires electricity. Electrolysis itself requires electricity. And most of the electricities are generated through thermal plants and the coal plants, which are itself a non-renewable source of energy. But in countries like Nepal, where we have a renewable source of energy like hydro energy, we have a less carbon footprint. And in that circumstances, we can we can persuade the car manufacturers like Kia or Hyundai and all those kind of companies to come to Nepal and explore the potential of creating a hydrogen-based production of the hydrogen-based cars. That is a potential for a foreign direct investment. And then, of course, then we can explore the supply chain of the hydrogen gas in the industries itself, because new products and new items can be produced using the hydrogen gases. So these are the few of the references that I've used. So with this, I want to close this presentation, showing you guys a fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell of one of the cars manufactured by the General Motors. So the technology is already there, as you can see in your screen. It's just that how are we going to tap the market potential, and how we make Nepal a prominent figure in the hydrogen cell. That is the biggest challenge, and which we in the Kathmandu University are aiming to take. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dipesh sir. It was a very nice presentation. You can stop your screen. So I think what is more important for us today is to have a general discussion. So these are the backgrounds. We still have time. We aim to end at 1 p.m. today. So we have one speaker, Dean Damar Bahadur Nepali from School of Engineering, and a summary before that. and all the time will be used for discussion. So we have approximately 20 to 25 minutes to discuss around what has been delivered so far. So I would like to request to make the discussion more flexible and more understandable. All the participants who have questions, please just raise your hands in the comment box or the chat box. You can write your questions to a particular presenter or audience or participants, or you can just let us know that you have a question. Then we will give a platform to you. So if you want to speak directly to the presenter, please let me know whom you want to talk to or put the question. Or if you have a question, just type in the chat box. We'll start from there. So I will start with the questions that are already written on the chat box. We have a few questions. Aniruddha Prasad Saha, he has given a quite a good comment. It's quite useful presentation. We have land, energy, water resources. What are the specific challenges for developing hydrogen industry? So the question from Aniruddha is, what are specific challenges for developing hydrogen industry? He has not specified to whom. Maybe Professor Bola Thapa can have some reflections, or Professor Vijay sir can have some answers. So what are the specific challenges for developing hydrogen industry despite of opportunities we have from land, water, and energy? Professor Thapa.
Thank you, Biras. I think part of this question that something were answered in presentation of Mr. Divesh Karki also. Like, of course, for the context of Nepal, this is still sort of we do have a limited knowledge even on the engineering sectors. Of course, it's not completely new. When we started working on this, so we came to know that like whenever private sector initiated hydropower projects, and when they have a little bit higher generation capacity than what they have agreed on PPA, they explored. Even I think maybe later on our dean, Dr. Damodar Nepali might tell us, like we were told like even Chilime had thought when it was being developed. And we were also told like some preliminary work was done by Bhotekoshi also to have a hydrogen production facility for their additional capacity, which initially they had quite a difference on the PPA and their installed capacity. So in that way, some sort of thinking had already started. Of course, we don't have any policy guideline or let's say the government's directives or regulations for this. So that's why now we have to, first of all, we should know ourselves. We should know what are the challenges, both the technical or financial challenges, and then we educate the policymakers, politicians to make changes on the policies for the investment. So definitely we are at the very infancy stage at the moment. We cannot blame anybody. Until now, we were just putting all our effort to develop a hydropower because we were struggling to supply the electricity. But now it's time for us to talk about this. So, and we are at the very right time, as Dr. Biras has mentioned in his presentation. Initially, it was economically competing with the fossil fuel was challenging, but now the cost is coming down. So without blaming anybody or without talking about any specific challenge, so it's time to start and hope that we will have some ignition in a very near future. That's only my response at the moment, Dr. Biras.
Thank you, sir. There is one comment and also a small question from Anis Kimire. He says, very nice presentation and good idea. He says, should we aim hydrogen for transportation or for other energy use? So what would be the cost? So he's more interested on end use. Do we need to, for maybe it is for the particular Nepalese interest, should we try to focus just for transportation sector or for energy use or combine both, and what would be the cost? So maybe that's a difficult question, but let us try to answer. Maybe Dipesh Karki sir can have his opinion first.
Okay, thank you for the question, sir. The main thing is, as I mentioned during my presentation, that this particular technology is still in the nascent stage from the business perspective. So we are in a situation like, for example, um, let me give you an analogy. Back in 1978, when the personal computers were being developed, at that time people used to think that there could be only 5 computers in the whole world. 5 computers will suffice. And then the IBM PC came and the Mac came, and the computers are there in everyone's home. So basically, in hydrogen cases, the transport sector is the one that has been seen as the most beneficiary at this very point of the time, because as I mentioned during my presentation, that the hydrogen gases are kind of flammable, and how to package it and how to send it to the homes and the end users for making it as a fuel is still a challenging part. But I think we can explore both, because in context of Nepal, I think we need to move towards electric vehicles and the clean energy, because our balance of trade is currently bleeding. It is bleeding because of the fossil fuels that we are importing from India. And only if we can only just stop the import of the fossil fuel, then we will have a much more prosperous nation in front of us, and we can export that to India tomorrow as well. So I think at present we should focus on the transport sector, but it also all depends on what kind of policies the government will bring regarding the fuel cell electric vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Apart from questions, we have so many good comments. Leknath Pathak, he says, very professionally conducted program that holds future for Nepal. Green hydrogen can become game changer in energy sector in Nepal. Nepal will be left out of it if it does not go for it, and can be a leader if it can use its potential in future. Thank you, Leknath. A very good comment. Thank you for your remarks, and we also have a lot of good comments. Maybe we have some other participants. Maybe we also need to have some remarks. I can see.
Yeah. Biraj.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think maybe the Professor Vibhuti Jha is there. But just before coming that, if for the question that Anish Gimire has raised, if Mr. Hitendra Sakya is there, if he can respond, like whether we can use hydrogen energy as a reserve capacity for the variation, whether the daily variation or seasonal variation. If he is he's still in the webinar, maybe later on, Mr. Hitendra Sakya, he can tell some sort of thinking of the Nepal Electricity Authority also. So maybe Professor Vibhuti Ranjan Jha can would like to say something. Yeah, we'll wait.
Hitendra sir, are you there? Yes.
We can listen to Professor Jha first, and then maybe later on we can
after that, I will request Mewang from EC Mode for some comments. He wants to make some comments. So please, Vibhuti sir, and then Mewang. So your mic is muted, Vibhuti sir. Vibhuti sir, your mic is mute.
It's on now?
Yes, okay. I can.
Yeah, thank you, Bilal sir. Thank you, Bhola sir, and everyone who presented. And I was quite late. I could not listen to Bhola sir, but I listened to partly to Bilal sir and Mr. Divesh Karki. I have a few queries because I'm from environment sector, and I have to say that because most of the time, energy sector people think that whenever there is no combustion, like fossil fuel burning or production of carbon, then they call it as a clean energy, and clean energy normally means without damaging to the environment. But in this case, I think I don't have a much technical thing. I think I have understood about this. But looking at your presentation, you have your production is based on hydropower, and hydropower is already modifying a lot of river continuum and all these things, and a lot of environmental sector is affected by production of hydropower. So there is still some effect on environment, even though there is no production of carbon like you claim as a clean energy and all these things. So these concerns are there. And my next thing is, you have a technology. You are claiming that you like electrophoresis. You break down water into hydrogen and oxygen, and hydrogen can be used as energy, and oxygen as a byproduct is a good thing for environment or something like that. So I think I understood those things, but you know, technical details like how much water you need to package, say a unit as shown by Dipesh Karki, 800 something kg, equivalent to a kg of fossil fuel. So how much water actually you consume? Because in one hand you are saying that water is a byproduct. On the other hand, you are saying that you know, water is split into hydrogen and oxygen. So that part is quite tricky for me, because when you are producing hydrogen and oxygen, when you are splitting water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen, that means you don't have water as a byproduct then. So how much water you need to package, for example, one cylinder of hydrogen? So that kind of calculations should also be made, because otherwise maybe we are using a lot of billions of cubic of water for producing hydrogen energy. So I think whether I missed it or not, but this part of calculations should also be there in the presentation. Thank you.
I think that's a very good remarks. So me and Professor Bola, we have been talking about it. It's like, to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, we need 1.5 kilogram of water, because it's H2O, like 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 molecule of oxygen. That's a balance. But the main question is not how much. Maybe the better question is what quality of water do we need? Because because it's not a normal water. We cannot take water directly from the river. So water has a quality. So the main challenge for us is how to create water that goes inside the electrolyzer. It's not a normal water from the tap. It's not a water from the river. So the water quality is a big challenge. So we know that there are so many research or discussions around the water quality, but that's the water quality for sanitation, water quality for drinking, water quality for hospitals, water quality for fish, for example. But we have not been discussing about the water quality that is needed to produce hydrogen from the electrolyzer. I think that's a very good debate. So we also need the environmental perspective on that. How do we produce the water to that quality which goes inside the electrolyzer, and what are the technology behind that? What are the costs behind that? And are we ready enough to bring that? So that's a very good question. That's a very technical questions. There are technologies that are working, but of course not the environmental engineers or environmental perspectives who can produce that water. Maybe one question could be, can we, for example, when we pipeline this kind of projects with sanitation project that's going around, so water treatment plant in Kathmandu Valley, for example, producing clean water, can it be further treated and produce the hydrogen? And of course, water is not a byproduct. It's just the same product. It's water before and it's water after. So byproduct, we say, is like on terms of when we use the fossil fuels, carbon dioxide is a byproduct. So that's the end product. So we don't call it byproduct. Sorry for correcting us. Thank you for correcting us. The end product is water. It's not a carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, or nitrous oxide that we produce from the fossil fuel. So very good questions. I think we don't have yes, we have to focus on that, and we will keep on working on that direction. Thank you, Dhar.
Thank you.
Mewang from EC Mode, can we have you on the scene?
Yes, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. SSB. I'm speaking from Bhutan, although I'm working in Nepal. So thank you very much, and very happy to be here in this discussion. Firstly, I would also like to congratulate all these organizers for bringing these high-quality discussions, and I think it will indeed shape the future of the hydrogen field in the world, perhaps. I wanted to make a couple of comments drawing from the presentation made by Biraji. And it is also, I think, going through the presentation, it is comforting to see that surplus the energy is expected in Nepal sometime by 2030 or something like that. But let us also be mindful that if the surplus energy is to come from hydropower, the cost of hydropower production may not be much cheaper than what we have. I do not know. I mean, I think in a mountain like ours, we also encounter a lot of the geological surprises that actually jacks up the price of the hydrogen production. So that's something to be noted as well. And when we also talk about the falling cost of the renewable energy, I would agree for a solar, but I do not know if the cost of the electricity production from wind power would be as declining as solar is, because I think the accessibility become a big challenge based on my experience, what I've done in Bhutan. Then on the hydrogen itself, I would like to point out a couple of things that the researchers might like to consider. The first thing is, I think the safety aspects of adopting hydrogen fuel has to be adequately addressed, because it may be something very interesting to look at as a source of energy. But if the safety aspects continue to exist, then I think it will still face a lot of hurdles. So that aspect may need to be addressed. The second part is the bottling, the packaging, the storage system will have to be made affordable. Unless it is affordable, I think it will remain far away from our affordability. Then the third part is, I think it also came up in several other policy discussions. And so I think the policy, the enabling policy has to be reoriented to that reprioritize the promotion of hydrogen fuel with a full political commitment. Otherwise, nothing much might actually happen. And the fourth part is, I would like to suggest that I think you would need to think of coming up with infrastructure development that actually allows the promotion of this hydrogen fuel. Unless it is there, then the transportation or whatever you call it, or where it is bottled up, this thing might turn out to be too challenging. So I think this will have to be form a part of and included equations when you actually develop the whole scheme. The fifth one would be, I would suggest that the end-use application of these fossil fuels, the hydrogen fuel, has to be broadened up. And I think it came up in a lot of the presentation, but I think it needs to be broadened up, and I think we should look at replacing almost where, like fossil fuels are being used in other places. And the last one would be, I think we need to create a right market structures so that we are able to move forward this program. This is all what I wanted to make a short comment. I hope it makes sense to you all. And thank you very much. It has been very enriching discussion. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Memo. I think your position at ICIMOD, and particularly the coordinator for RICH program, and your long experience in Bhutanese electricity system will add value. We will be keeping in touch. I think we have raised a very, very good comments. I think it is also in line with Devi Vedari sir's comments. So maybe he has highlighted the energy consumption and production from 50 kilowatt hour to 30 kilowatt hour. But here we are trying to use spilled energy. Maybe I would request Devi Vedari sir to have his comments, and maybe Professor Bola can respond to it afterwards. Devi sir.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. I just want to congratulate three of you on your presentation. Actually, very well, nicely delivered. Actually, I don't have a question per se. I only have a couple of comments regarding what can be done and what kind of research need to be initiated and so on. And I'm looking at probably a little bit of pessimistic view, actually, because this project at very initial stage, incipient stage, actually. And if it is at the incipient stage, we are going to have a lot of problems, actually. The major problem that I'm seeing with this product is being used as an accessory product for other bigger products or bigger instruments or bigger machines and so on. And so, unfortunately, we don't have a market for this product. As I have seen, this is not viable to use in our own household sector, and it is not possible to use in a household sector because the cost of electricity that's going to produce hydrogen is very high actually. As I was reading somewhere, and I found that you have to use 50 kilowatt hour of electricity to produce 30 kilowatt hour of 1 kilogram of worth of hydrogen actually. So it is not feasible for households. So direct private consumption is not possible actually. Even I was thinking about maybe residential area could be used this one when they are constructing residential areas, or maybe they could refurbish residential area for making this electricity, this source of power available in case there is an interruption and so on. So we don't have any interruption anymore, and we are hoping that smooth supply of electricity is going to hold from now on. So because of that, and I'm not saying there's a possibility to use in the private sector actually, I'm talking about the household sector. Then I'm looking at its use in our industries actually. We don't have any industries that are using this product actually. So commercial use of this product in our industries also has a limitation. That's another point actually. As Dipesh sir has already mentioned, you have to have a fertilizer industry, ammonia, and all kind of plastics production, or refineries and so on, and unfortunately chemical industries, and we don't have those industries actually. So because of that, that's also another problem actually. So maybe, if we want to develop this product actually, then maybe also need to develop the sector that is going to be ultimate user of this product, if we want to use it in our own economy. Another one is transportation actually. We don't even produce our own vehicles. Our vehicles are coming from India. And if Indians don't produce vehicles that are going to use hydrogen fuel cells, then of course, what are we going to do actually? So that is also a limitation actually. So I'm seeing a severe problem of use of this source of power in our own context. And then I'm looking at, okay, then what is the next option actually? The next option would be to use this product to sell it abroad actually. I'm looking at two bigger markets. And actually, both of them are very innovative. We are surrounded by these two countries, China and India. China is involved in fuels, this hydrogen development, and they also have some industries working on the same area, and then India also has the same kind of thing actually. So, but the problem with India is not very reliable. They might need it, and they may not want our product. If we are producing something very efficiently and so on, the Indian producers have a tendency to what they call to temper to this sort of create a barrier for importing products from other countries actually, because they also want to cater for their own producer. So that's also a limitation. And the second limitation with respect to India is about producing about 10% of nuclear power now. And the nuclear power as a source to hydrogen is going to be much more efficient and much more cost effective compared to our actually. I've seen that you are proposing the cost per kg is going to be 1,000 rupees. That's a very good actually. That's very economical actually. If we could produce at that price and maybe find a market, India may not be a good market, and China, I don't know actually, China may not be a good market either. China also is investing a lot of money on nuclear power. And so therefore, we have to look for other markets. So looking for other markets, the possibility where they are using and etc. It's a big research in itself actually. So we have to conduct a research exploring market first of all. That is what I would say. Second thing we need to look at is looking at our cost and benefit analysis actually, the cost of producing this really, and then how the cost is going to change in the longer run. That is also very important. What we see is eventually they will try to bring new technology, and then the private sector is going to adapt to new technology, and then they are going to be cheaper, and then we normally tend to become more expensive in terms of cost of production. So that could be another problem actually. And also I've seen that the type of the fuel we are producing also has an impact. Actually, what kind of fuel we are producing. I found that there is a air-cooled and water-cooled, and the air-cooled has a much larger share of the market. So what kind of product are we producing? So there should be a lot of research regarding how the market could be, market is segmented and how we can exploit that segmentation of the market and where it can be applied and what region is our potential market. These kind of things are very important, actually. The major threat I'm seeing is our neighbors may not be very receptive of our being innovative, and I'm sorry to say, I'm being very negative, actually. They may not be a very good market for us, and then looking for other markets. We also need to look at the threat, actually, the possible threat that will come as the innovation and the technology enhancement will continue to progress, and how are we going to fight with that one? Basically, we need to do a lot of research, actually, cost benefit, market exploration, and so on, etc. Actually, that's all. But thank you so much for your presentation. This is very eye-opening and very insightful, and I'm very thankful that our own initiative, our own university is taking this initiative. It's a wonderful initiative, actually. So hope this becomes a successful initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are so many other questions and comments. Maybe we will be taking few of them. Bedmani Bahal, he has taken up a very good questions. From the presenters, it seems that hydrogen fuel is not a problem from a technical, environmental, and economic, maybe socially accepted. Then where is the problem? I'm curious to know. So I think that's a very, very good question, and it also puts a same pitch on Davies sirs as well. So we also have a lot of medicinal plants. We also have the patients that needs those plants, but we don't have a high-end medical products. All the medical plants goes to India, processed from there, come back to Nepal and bottled here. So I think the main thing is we don't have a capacity, or we don't have a confidence, or we don't have a guts to move forward in this direction. So if actually boils down to the leadership and politics, because it's a huge business, thousands of megawatts coming to the project. So I think if the leadership starts thinking on that direction, and Davies are also highlighted on the same questions, like where do we use it? So all the challenges. So at least the thing is we started to discuss. We started to find what are the problems are, what are the challenges that could be. We don't have a hydrogen to sell tomorrow or next year, even though. So we may have 5 years or as a lead period where we can discuss all these good questions and try to find answers. We need to push the leaderships. As I said, if we have medical herbs and if we have a patients who needs medicines, why don't we produce it? It's the same thing. We have energy and it's feasible, but still we don't produce it. So I think it's a dog cat thing. So we need to start somewhere, and the best way to start is to discuss where we don't lose money. We start the good ideas, and once we find the solutions, we can go ahead. So many questions. Maybe Balasar can summarize few of them, and then we should try to conclude as well.
Thank you, Biraj. Of course, there are so many questions, and first of all, we confess that we are not expert on this area. We have also started learning about this and then practicing about this. So maybe we are a little bit ahead than some of you, or some of you might know even much more than what we know. But what we thought is we as a university should take up a discussion on this issue, and then it is such a multidisciplinary area that now at least we are in a position to pose a question. Otherwise, even we didn't have that before. So of course, I will not be able to answer all those answers to all those questions, but we will record this, and these questions are motivating us to work further, and then at least technically as well as managerially, or even a policy wise. So I know that we have a limited time, but still, for Professor Bidari, of course, you said you are pessimistic. Of course, with the Nepali present context, many of us are pessimistic. But I will present myself as optimistic, because the way the energy sector was developed in last 2 or 3 decades, the way education, especially the technical education, was developed in this country, the way private sector has taken up a responsibility, I'm optimistic, sir, because when I'm example here. When we Kathmandu University had started our engineering education in mechanical engineering, even the mechanical engineering community at that time said this is not a feasible project because we don't have an industry. It's also the same again, chicken or egg. Whether first the people should be prepared or industry, then the industry should take them, or industry should be ready, or then they will recruit them. Like for in my lifetime, sir, like when I was means about to graduate, or I was still studying engineering, we had only 2 cement industry in this country, Himal Cement and then Hetona Cement. But now, like there are several, means hundreds of the cement industries. At the moment, like of course we had a Fulchoki, that copper mine, this iron was being extracted, that stopped. But now there is a sort of government's plans to have a copper iron mining in Nawalparasi. If let's say private sector will come, and then a lot of new use of the hydrogen will come. Similarly, within the system of Nepal Electricity Authority, like when they are talking about the cross-border trade of the electricity, we need to have a this stable or reliable supply of electricity. Otherwise, we might have to pay the penalty if we fail to supply the electricity or supply the electricity of the quality we need. So within the Nepal Electricity Authority, they are talking about the reserve capacity. Like somebody has to pay for the reserve capacity even if they don't have to produce. So maybe the energy, when we have we are in a surplus, we can just store it in the form of hydrogen, and that we can produce it for seasonal variation or daily variations, or as a reserve capacity. So I cannot of course, even I see like it's not very, of course, new technology or very difficult thing to produce the chemical fertilizer out of the hydrogen. Of course, it's how do we make it economically feasible? That's another question. So maybe if Mr. Dr. Purna Nepali is listening, maybe he can tell a little bit about in the context of food security, which we are talking after post-COVID now, means for the post-COVID activity strategy of the government. So starting a chemical fertilizer plant is not that difficult, because on the investment summit 2 years back, the Nepal Investment Authority, this board has already put a chemical fertilizer plant on a showcase. That means anybody can start a project if there is an investment, and of course the techno feasibility or economic feasibility of all those things are there. Of course I would like to hear more later on from the dean, because I think when he was talking about Chilime was not feasible at all. Let's recall, like if Chandra Shamsher would have done a feasibility study or a market study of electricity when he established a Farping hydropower project, that project would never have come. Of course, for hydrogen also it could be same. But I am really inspired today because I can see many participants, from young participants. I read a comment here from Ivana Manandar, like she has at least agreed the consequence on the environmental context, as well as maybe these young graduates will be taking up or leading hydropower projects in the future, and then they will start thinking for the project in a different way. So of course I fully agree with you, Professor Birari, that we have to create a market for it, how and where and how this hydrogen will be used. And of course, if we start using, there will be different dimensions of activities in this society. So of course I will not be able to address all other questions here, but in general, that we as who are proposing for this activity at the moment. We are really inspired by your active participation, your suggestions, your questions. We will continue to work on this, as well as we will knock the door of the government, knock the door of the donor agencies, knock the door of investment agencies, as well as private sector for investing and then starting work on this area. So with this, I would like to thank everybody on my behalf, for your very generous support and then very encouraging statements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. There are so many good participants. We would like to hear. Ishwar Mandasar is there. Thank you very much, sir, coming there. We have talked with you. Maybe in future we will be talking again. But quickly, before we go to the towards the end, where Dean of School of Engineering will give his remark, I would like to request Prakash Aryal, sir. He's in Australia. He's doing his PhD in somewhere around the hydrogen technology in Australia. He knows the Australian prospective challenges and how it's there. And he's also working in Alternative Energy Promotion Center in Nepal. So maybe last comments from Prakash Aryal, sir. Then we'll start towards the closing of the ceremony. Prakash, sir.
Thank you so much, Biraj, sir. So indeed, very excellent presentations and very informative. In my understanding, this is the first of its kind in Nepalese energy circle. This sort of program was not happened before. So actually, I have a little bit of experience in this Australian context. Before that, when I was studying in Pulso campus, there was a project, similar hydrogen project. I don't know whether Professor Bhaktabahadur Ale sir is attending this. Maybe he would be quite keen to know these new developments. But at that time, because of this storage problem, so hydrogen was produced successfully from the electrolysis. Maybe similar technology has been quite advanced today in global context. But the storage was problem, because since the hydrogen is the first, like with single molecule, it can like permeate through the any layer of maybe like iron like containers. It is very challenging to store. So I saw some of the comments as well. These are quite relevant. But today, like world renowned research organizations are very researching on particularly reducing the cost, that is electrolyzer and the membranes. So this is, we don't need to worry about. So cost will gradually come down definitely in like next maybe 5 or 10 years. But the foundation has to be casted in Nepalese context. I mentioned one comment over here that compared to Australian hydrogen market, they are targeting to sell hydrogen from Australia all the way like back to Europe or Korea and even in China as well. They want to substitute liquefied natural gas. At the moment, Australia is successfully liquefying the natural gas. That is 96% about methane gas through a cryogenic liquefier, and then they are transporting all the way back to Japan or Korea or China. So based on that liquefying natural gas experience, they want to produce hydrogen all the way from solar and wind energy. They want to invest like upfront capital on the wind and solar. We are quite lucky that hydropower is like surplus hydropower is already potentially available in near future in Nepalese energy market. That's we are quite blessed of. And as well as like water quality is another big issue that already been raised here. And because desalination of the ocean water is another energy intensive and quite challenging issue. So even Australians are ready to desalinate their ocean water to convert into high quality water that is requirement of the electrolyzer. So these two upfront capital cost, beside that they want to produce hydrogen at around $3 per kg of hydrogen. That is the like approximate price that Japan or Korea or China is ready to buy from Australia. That is, one more time, I would like to reiterate that $3 per kg of hydrogen. This is somewhere they can afford or they can buy. So market are ready globally, but we have to be able to take our competitive advantage quite positively. That's why this kind of workshop should be continued, including policymakers, private investors, and maybe for the eye-opening or to make like build confidence, maybe we can start from piloting or something like that. KU can take a lead. Yes, that's all from my side because we
Thank you
have
very much,
time
sir.
limitation.
From
Yeah.
our side, we'd like to apologize for taking a bit longer time, but this is, I think, a very good discussion. So we will move towards closer. So I think the rapporteur summary may not be very necessary. So I will thank Resap Thapa, who has been taking notes. So we will make the notes and share with all the registered participants. So please register your email address to our registration form. So we will send out our rapporteur's summary by email. So we will not include it in this live presentations discussions right now. So Resa, please, sorry for that, but we have to move ahead. So finally, before I request Damar Nepali sir, I would like to request Ishwar Mandesari, if he's there, just to put a perspective of private investors, our private hydropower developers perspective, IPP sector in Nepal. Ishwar sir, are you there, sir? And then we will move towards Dean sir. Yes, I can see Ishwar sir.
I am in. Hello, Biraji.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Biraji. So I was late to join this session anyway, so I just managed to catch up the last part of the session. But you know, for me, as being a part of power producers, is important is the cost and the market definitely. And for that, you know, I think it's too early to talk about. It's a long way to go. That's why whole world is working on this. I think massive amount of research is ongoing on this chapter, and everybody is concerned about when the cost will be relevant to compete with other source of energies basically. That's a point, but good to start earlier anyway, because every aspect Nepal becomes very late to start, and this matter Nepal is starting quite early, and this is quite appreciated. And then every resource needs resources anyway. So and that's a challenge here. So that's has to be many government sector, private sectors to support such research and going forward. Definitely, I'm very much excited to look to development on this in coming days. Thank you very much, Bijaji.
Thank you, sir. I think we should close it. A lot of participants. Thank you. We crossed 105 total participants. It was very motivating. Thank you very much, everybody. So I would request Dean, School of Engineering. He has lots of experiences on hydropower development. Maybe now his initiation should be towards how to make the hydropower sustainable and profitable to the investors. So Dean, sir, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, Biraj sir, thank you very much for giving me this type of opportunity and also giving the vote of thanks. First thing is that, green hydrogen technology, why and how. This is the topics that you have given. And this is a wonderful webinar. You have collected more than 100 participants over here. So I really congratulate you for all those organizers. And also, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Bhola Thapa, because he has inaugurated this session to start with. And when I started talking to him, he was said that, okay, just let us start it. Let us start it. That is the spirit which I really enjoy. I like it, and I really think about the positive way. And also Professor Dr. Vijay Keshi also, definitely, if he is ready to join with the management, with the engineering, right? And which is very important. This is because that what is lacking in this country is the management. If real good management is there, then we can do everything. We got all the resources. We got everything that we can do. But anyway, he's ready for helping our units to go ahead with it. And another is Biraj Singh, as you have arranged all these things, and your presentation is really covering such a wonderfully and elaborately. I was thinking that I might need to talk a lot about it, but fortunately, you have talked all the scenario about this hydropower in Nepal. And also that is true, that hydropower which is generating, definitely water is flowing, and even if we can generate it, we cannot sell it to any
because NEA got also some limitation. So to use the extra generation in this sector is really a wonderful and appreciable uh, use, project for this. So I really appreciate about what you have started, what you were guided to start with, and also I would like to thank this Dipesh Karki. His perspectives a little bit different than what you have done, but it is supporting and also the supplementary for what you have already presented. He's elaborately, he has given how it is using, where it is developing and all these things. So wonderful it has become. So first thing is, many times Professor Bhola already mentioned about, say, Dombar Nepali and this uh, uh, what do you call, even I forgot my name, this Chilime hydropower, right? Definitely, because I would like to suggest that, if I go to the market and think about what am I going to do and how is it possible, whether it is feasible or not, if I start asking, people will say that even Nepal Electricity Authority, actually all are devoted for generation of hydropower and transmitting and distributing. But still, when I say that, why can't we do ourselves? Because Khimti is there, Potikosi is there, we have to do the power purchase in dollars term, so we have to pay in terms of dollar. Our money is going to be devalued. When we are going to pay, it will be a huge amount, and possibly Nepal Electricity is going to be bankrupt. So that was the scenario when we started this. And believe me that 99% of those people in this Nepal Electricity Authority they said that, yeah, this guy made his doctorate from United States. Because of that, he started dreaming. He is a bola. So that word also I heard come across to see. So because of that, don't give up, go ahead with it, and that is definitely do something really very good about it. As this year, Prakash Aryal also participated, and Ishwar Desar also participated. Their words are very encouraging. Actually, they are experiencing outside of the world, because they are knowing it, how that can be used. So what I understand is, let us start, let us begin from the research work. Of course, everyone in our society here in our university is not aware of how this hydrogen is generated and how it is used and all these things. But once you do some research work, there will be a lot of things. This interaction, as say, when I used to the hydropower project, lots of negative questions used to come, negative, and those questions are really very instructive for me, and rethinking about it, and all these things were there, because to do in the first time is so difficult. So Dr. Bedmani also showed you some sort of guide. I will take it as a guidelines, because negative thinking also is a very good guidelines for us, because that guide us really in a very nice moment. And we do have our partner Mewang from Bhutan, right? And he also must have the same thing problem, that if surplus energy, what to do and all these things, right? But when we talk about the PPA in Nepal Electricity Authority, definitely surplus energy, they want to take it in a free way. But after starting this Chilime, definitely what has happened is, everyone thought that, okay, Nepalese can do it. Oh, Nepalese do have money. Oh, if we start doing it, we can do it. That is what the spirit gained it. And now I don't have to worry about what is going on in Nepal in the hydropower sector, simply because that people, the contractor, constructor, banks, all these things are started in taking initiation to develop hydropower. That is the research that we got. Another part, when I think about it, is food, which is necessary for everyone. And what we need for the food is land, water, fertilizer, manpower, machine, and weather. These things need to be very well there. when we talk about fertilizers, definitely hydrogen might be helping it over there in the production of fertilizer. So this hydropower, definitely now it is costly. Yes, when someone talks about costly, when we need to pump money on it, then what has to happen is he has to have a payback, rate of return, and that should be attractive. Otherwise, they are not going to put money on it. Why do we work for um, those from outside, FDI? I really don't want that FDI side of thing. When we start collecting, when we think about we providing a benefit to the people, they will just come across and all. But there should not, honestly, it should work over there. Then only it can be done. So another thing is that, this now Nepal Electricity also Authority also, this load shedding, why the load shedding is was there and why it is not here. That is some sort of really good management, and also the power production has raised within. People used to think that, okay, 100 years before the project was built, now it is only 300, 400, 500, like that. Now it is coming up. Say, to understand it, 10,000, 1,095 megawatt is there. Government was reluctant at the time when it has to pump money on it. So what it does, it just go for another countries and say, beg the money. Oh, please do this and do that and all these things, right? But now people are energetic and they are doing it, and there are under construction. Say 2,460 megawatt is there in the under construction. But you have shown better, Biraj. You have shown all the scenario better. Previously, thermal power plant or the diesel using, that also need to be imported, and that gives the pollution. But still, we need it because we cannot stay in that. So because of that, to avoid the load shedding, in the beginning, we started over there. And solar, when you talk about it, of course, solar is, I also use solar power here in my house. Why? Because I don't want to stay in dark. So because of that, what that is need. But if I think about per kilowatt, it is really very costly, really and really very costly. So atomic energy, if you talk about it, we know the Chernobyl and also Japan. So these things are there. They don't want it, but they need it. That's why they are doing it. So all these things seems to me that hydropower is necessary. And hydropower, what is the end use of hydropower is surplus energy need to be used for generating hydrogen, and this hydrogen can be used for fuel, right? And this fuel will be, say, in short, we can use fertilizer also, and transportation. Definitely we are importing fossil fuel, which can be replaced. And also, if cooking can be done, definitely it is dangerous. But if we don't work, the danger is always there. Just like coronavirus, when I compare with food, because I don't know, I don't see food, but what to do? If someone says that, okay, food is there, it's a corona also is the same thing. These things are very essential to work it out on that. The initiation of this hydro to hydrogen is really very good venture for Kathmandu University, and also the cottage industries and all these agro processing needs power. Even the Chilime, when we started, I never thought about that a water plant will be there, but it came up because they thought that, okay, that's a very nice thing. And mining engineering, and what is irrigation? How the irrigation is going on? Groundwater, they cannot pump groundwater. If you can supply power, definitely they will do that. Cold storage, we can food preservation and all these things. We need food security, because when the lockdown is there, or maybe what India had done. Therefore, definitely we need to produce ourselves. I used to think that, okay, when I do have money, I can buy anything. No, that was not true, because when blockade is there, we cannot do anything. The money doesn't make any sense. In this case now, what is happening here is also, I got money, but I cannot go to the market. What is the value of money? So these are there. And in the beginning, when I was trying to explore that extra, because I got the license for 20 megawatt for Chilime, but we installed it for 22 megawatt, because I was asked with one of our senior most person that Why is there any project which is generating the amount of energy which is planned to generate, about power, how much to generate, is it planning? Then I thought, okay, say I have to be serious on this. Like Bedmani sir has already indicated some of those things that which in a way negatively, another way I will take it positively, because those are the things that we need to think about, if not now, in future also. So then I thought, why don't I increase for 10% and make it 22? Now generating 22 megawatt, and 22 megawatt, 2 megawatt extra is buying it for half a price. So that is advantageous for Nepal Electricity Authority. And also we are, at least instead of flowing the water without generating power, we can flow it through the turbine generator. So because of that, we can get money out of that. So these are there. And also once I used to thought that, where is the end use if I don't have any other facilities to do it? Then someone told me that, why don't you produce silicon? Then I started exploring about silica. Silica, of course, oxidation, reducing it will produce silicon, and which is very important for solar energy. These are so important things to think about it. So my message to all of us, those who are trying to venture, is discuss, and we'll land nowhere. So only discussion will not help, but push and push and push, the dream will come true. So this is what I experienced in my life, and I have done that. Because of that, now we are load shedding free country. It has become. Now whatever we are importing, definitely the day will come when we can export it. And I would like to thank all the participants, all those who are here, and also the management. I would like to from wholeheartedly from so School of Engineering, on behalf of School of Engineering, and also on behalf of management, I would like to thank all of those participants and the presenters. Thank you very much. And also I will say namaste to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think with this, we would like to end this webinar. It was very wonderful, much more success than we expected, much more better comments, positive comments, even the negative comments are good for us to think to solution to it. So thank you very much. So with this, the seminar is closed. We will reach you from the contact details, and definitely future seminars will be organized, and we will expect your participation there as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Till organizing it out, nobody. They are still interested to listen something else. Huh? Just Biraj sir, what I message is just go ahead, push and go.
Thank you, sir.
It has been a well organized, well invited, well participant. Such a wonderful. I really love it. I really thank you, and also who is the next that I said?
Thank you, sir.
Dipesh Karki also. It's a wonderful presentation. At least you can mail it your presentation as well as Dipesh the presentation. All the direction, discussion, and all these things maybe might not be necessary, but slides are very important because you got very pretty good data, and also generation will be nice of that. And you said Devi Bedari also participated from the management.
Yes. Yes, sir.
So he had given some of the comment. Take it, all those comments, take it, think about it, and make it positive. Turn it to the positive, right? That is going to help a lot for us. Okay, thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we will wait for all the participants to leave. We will be here. And all the organizing team will have a short review of the event today. So maybe we can stop the Facebook Live, and maybe we can also stop the recording.